Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to Untethered. I gave a talk a year ago about best practices for recording and some different ideas, and did not think we'd be back this year. I think, like everybody else, we thought we would be done in August. We thought that was going to be kind of the end of it. This thing would be over, but alas, it's not. And it seems like the virtual conference is actually going to last a while. So I'm going to go into a little more depth into virtual pre-recording and all the different things that we've learned in best practices, recording a couple thousand hours worth of content in multitude and various different ways. So the first most important thing to determine is what kind of presentation meeting are you giving, right? What are the most common types of sessions given? Are they demo heavy? Are they slide heavy? Are they video heavy? All of the above, and then once you determine that, like, how do you want it presented? Do you want it picture in picture, slide only, video only, live switch throughout the presentation? What is that going to be? Then how are you going to play it back? Is it going to be on demand? Is it going to be simulive where you bring on people for live QA? What type of playback are you going to do with these particular files? And then when does your platform need the files? And I mean really need the files. They're always going to give you a date that's like 5 weeks before the event. Truth is, that's just not going to happen, because what we've learned is speakers are hard to control. As a matter of fact, they are nearly, and I would cross out nearly if you probably did it right, impossible to control. Setting realistic expectations is crucial to the success of your event. Deadlines that you communicate with anybody need to be bold and upfront and reiterated time and again. Needs to be drilled in, because a lot of times what people see is, the event is April 25th. And so I don't need my files until April 24th because I would be flying on my plane in the past and doing that. But the truth is that the platform provider needs it, and the editing company needs to do it, and the recording company, and it could be 2 to 3 to 4 weeks before that. So it's very important that you reiterate when their event is happening, not when the actual event itself is happening. Confirmation of speaker emails is really important. You have to make sure they reply back so that they don't go to junk mail. I know that's kind of sounds really simple, but when you're integrating with recording companies and playback providers and Simulive, it's really important that they reply back so that it didn't go into spam. And also, really, really, really communicate with the client, the speakers, the capture company, playback provider, etc. So what else have we learned? Timelines are and need to be compressed. We thought initially, if an event was June 1st, that we could start recording April 15th. No problem, 6 weeks out. And man, did we get a tremendous amount of pushback. It was incredible. Everyone was pushing back to us and saying, no. I know the event's June 1st. I want to record May 31st. So it's really important that you know that most of your recording is going to occur 2 to 3 weeks before the event. And if the playback provider needs a week, that means you're recording 1 week before the event, which is going to put a lot of pressure on your editors and everybody else. And that's only going to happen if you're really lucky, because the 80-20 rule does apply. If you have 50 speakers, 40 of them are going to follow the rules. They're going to be cooperative. They're going to do everything on time. They're going to be prepared and everything. But those other 10, you're going to spend 80% of your time working on getting them to do it. And they're going to come up with every excuse on their son, many of them legitimate and many of them not, that allows you to actually go through and get them recorded and up, because they're going to push it to the last possible minute. And believe me, I've heard them all. So have you. Last minute changes will happen. There's going to be speaker replacements. There's going to be delays. There's going to be, for instance, last week we were doing a conference, and what could we do? We couldn't do anything because the power was out, in Texas. Okay? Deadlines are fungible. Your playback provider is going to give you a deadline. What you need to do is really investigate hard. What is the real deadline? And the same with the capture company. Like, okay, you're telling me you need a week to edit? Come on, we used to have on-site editors. What is the real time that you need to produce these files, whatever they are, in the fashion that they need to be produced? It's very, very important that deadlines are understood. Communicate a hard deadline to the speakers, and then the real deadline internally. So now we're going to take a little time and we're going to talk about the 4 different types of pre-recording options that are out there. And they're fairly standard, but these are the 4 that we're going to talk about. Record on your own, remote recording via video conferencing, a hybrid, which is actually a mix between the two, and using a mobile studio. What we're going to talk about are what you get for them, and then the actual outcomes. So let's first talk about record on your own. Record on your own is where the speaker's just going to do it on his own laptop, her own laptop. The complexity for speakers is amazingly really, really high. They will re-record multiple times. It's complicated, and they really never know if they actually have a good file till it's done. The recording quality generally is really low because there's nobody monitoring, making sure that they're on mic, making sure there weren't any glitches, making sure that they have good lighting, they have a good webcam, they have a good background, all of that. Time monitoring. If you tell them it's 30 minutes, you don't know what length of session you're going to get. It could be anywhere from 8 minutes to 45 minutes. And by the time you get those files, because remember I told you you're going to get them really, really late, there's no time to go and re-record. And that's one thing speakers never want to do is re-record. You also rarely get editing notes of any consequence, which says, wow, I had a huge coughing fit at 10 minutes and 30 seconds and I needed to take a break and I backed up 2 slides because the editor's going to see the file. They're going to chop the front, chop the back in most cases and send it on. And here this person's going to have this huge coughing attack and it's really going to cause you a lot of problems. And integration of multiple speakers, if you have more than one speaker per session, is really, really bad. So here are the outcomes. Video depends on their webcam. Slides depends on their laptop. Audio depends if they use a mic or not, and know if they even know how to use a mic. Background, don't even need to go there. Lighting, who the heck knows? Feedback from speakers has been really negative because they say it's really difficult. They're talking into a laptop. There's no feedback. There's no sensory anything. They're just yelling into a laptop, and it's really, really hard for them. However, the cost is low, usually about $50 to $150 per hour for an edited session. So now let's talk about remote recording. Remote recording is where someone is sent an invite, they call in, video conferencing wise, they video in, and then they're recorded there. So complexity for speakers, low to medium. The hardest part, you got to get to the meeting, and then being able to actually learn how to use the presentation button, making sure that the microphone and everything is connected properly to that specific video conferencing software. Because the one thing is Teams and Zoom and Google Meet and WebEx all retain different settings. So just because the microphone was set up for a Zoom meeting doesn't mean it is for Google Meet or for Teams. Very important to understand. The recording, though, is really medium to high, really depending upon the internet connection. If there's a solid internet connection, the quality of your recording is going to be really, really good if the recording company knows what they're doing. And that is a full screen of video and a full screen of slides and then splitting it up. You're also going to be able to monitor time. It's also supervised. You're also going to have editing notes. So if a speaker has a coughing thing, you say, okay, all right, that happened. All right, let's back up. We're going to retake again from this particular slide and let's go forward. It really helps with the editors and it really helps with the ultimate quality. And multiple speaker integration is really easy as long as everybody shows up to the meeting at the same time. The outcomes, the video, depends on their webcam, but at least you get some feedback and they can say, yeah, can you move your light around? Can you do this a little bit better? Slides depends on the internet connection. In most cases, it's pretty good. Where you might run into a little bit of an issue is if you have PowerPoint that you're doing online, sometimes it loads a little bit slow if the internet connection is slow, and on slide change, there can be a little bit of a hiccup on video, generally not with the audio. Audio, they need a microphone. If the microphone's good, they'll be good because you'll be listening to it. And in the background, depends upon the speaker again. Lighting, we've already been there. Zoom is okay for it, but not recommended. Google Meet is actually much easier. Feedback from the speakers has been very, very positive because they feel they're talking to someone. They feel at least there's an audience and they feel like they can actually get something accomplished and feel like there's some interactivity. Cost is medium. It's about $200 to $250 to $300. Sorry, it's about $100 to $200 an hour for edited. So about $50 more than if they record on their own because there's a lot less editing complexity because they know what they're going to get. So let's talk about the mobile studio real quick. Complexity of speakers, low. They just have to show up. Recording quality is high. It's supervised. There's editing notes. And there's multiple speaker integration is a little more difficult because they have to have social distancing requirements, so you can't really have them side by side like you can in a video conferencing thing. The outcomes, great video, great slides, great audio, great background, all of that. But the cost is kind of prohibitive. $2,000 to $3,000 a day generally to have a studio come to you in the local setup in a hotel, and then you actually have the speakers come. But it can still work out. Let's talk about some best practices with regard to whether you're remote recording or record on your own, especially remote recording. Make sure that you send out to them a lavalier mic or a desktop mic, a ring light, and a USB-C adapter. If you want to have the best audio, if you want to have the best video, that's the best way to do it. Webcams are optional because most laptops have good enough webcams, actually pretty good webcams, that you don't really need to go to the extra expensive webcam and cost you $25 to $35. The cost for domestic is about $85 to $125. International is about $175 to $200, including all duties. But it's really good to have a fulfillment house do it. Some recording companies do that. We do. But rather than ordering from Amazon and getting these random shipments, a single shipment, you can include a little tchotchke with them, a little thank you card, all kinds of things. And it really adds to the speaker's engagement and feeling that they're really part of the meeting. Okay? Really important things. Have a pre-event meeting to make sure all the speakers know what's expected of them. If they're recording on their own, we highly recommend OBS. It is free, open source software. It's used throughout the industry. It's fantastic. Make sure they include video in their capture. There are ways to do that in OBS. And I highly recommend don't use Zoom. The quality of Zoom in the recording side, even if you know what you're doing, just doesn't meet the standard, and you're going to be so disappointed, and you're going to get negative feedback from your attendees. So, making appointments for remote recording. Make your appointments 2x the length of the session. If it's a half-hour session, make it for an hour. I don't recommend doing any meetings less than 45 minutes. Make sure that you have appointments early and late in the day to accommodate multiple time zones. Explain your expectations to the recording company. How long is the session? What if they go long? What's going to be like if you're going to do Simulive live QA so that they can say, hey, you're going to be getting an email that's going to be doing all that. And for multiple speakers, make sure they all come into the same appointment at the same time. If you're doing a mobile studio, put them in strategic locations and make sure your speakers show up. So this is what it can look like if you do record on your own. This is an actual recording we received, and it's really hard to do anything with that on the editing side to make it any better. But using the exact same basic setup and having them call in to record on your own, the one on the left is what we captured, and the one on the right is what we were actually able to deliver for our client. Using the same basic technologies, everyone had the same microphones, everyone's had the same lighting. Look at the difference in how much quality you can produce by doing that for a very, very small cost. So these are the types of sessions that you should use with regard to the best method for recording. So for general sessions, spotlight stuff, that's what the mobile studio is for. If you have panels, you can do Zoom, you can do remote recording, record on your own. Panels are pretty easy, no slides. For demos, hybrid, you can do the demo recorded on the laptop so you don't have any internet problems. The recording tech record on remote recording can walk them through that. PowerPoint is great for remote recording, and so are multiple speaker presentations. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody. Here's my contact information. Would love to follow up, have you send us any information. I'm feel free to get all the information back to you, and we'll do whatever we can to make sure that your pre-recording is the best possible. And thanks so much. We really appreciate it.